Navigating Opportunities and Overcoming Challenges. My name is Peter Adeniyi. I'm the head of government business for TL First Group. The speaker for today's topic is Dr. Soji Adeniyi. He will be speaking on the topic of the challenges facing the Nigerian economy and the opportunities and survival mode by which we can overcome some of these challenges. I'm sure we are all going through one or two forms of these challenges. Dr. Soji is an experienced social development consultant. He's had over 20 years experience working with United Nations. And at a point while he was there, he was the chairman of the United Nations Pensions Fund. Dr. Soji is also a seasoned professional with his focus on government and public enterprise. We have the pleasure to bring him on board to discuss this topic because he's an individual with vast experience as it affects government business and also as it affects the economy. Permit me to digress a little. As an industrialist said, Dangote, who is the head of the Dangote Group, he had said 30% of the problems with the economy is a lack of electricity, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. Electricity is key if we must industrialize as a nation and if we must move forward as a people. This is one major ingredient that is lacking. And he had said, no light, no industrialization, no business, because without light, there will be no business. So Dr. Soji will be dwelling heavily on this point. Permit me also the privilege to introduce our chairman, Professor Olusegun Olasade, who is an experienced expert on executive leadership education. He's spent over 25 years as chairman of boards, and he's also a very good strategist who spent most of his life dealing with strategy, work with governments, both here in Nigeria and abroad as well. Presently works with the British government, working on issues of strategy, consultancy, management, and accountancy. We welcome you, sir, Professor Olasade. Before I progress, please, we're going to be working with the Chatham House rules. Please, the rule is clear. Be free to express your views. Whatever you say here stays here. So don't be afraid to say what you need to say concerning the economy. And please, the rule also states that you should kindly use your name where you need to speak. Don't use the name of your device. Introduce yourself properly and use your name. And please, if you have any questions, put them in the question box, the chat box by your system. We will deal with each question as they arise. So at this point, we expect a very viral and very effective discourse on the Nigerian economy. So we want to inform all participants that our chairman has graciously offered to give 10 copies of the book he wrote himself, bringing in his wealth of knowledge and experience. The book is The Agent of Change, and he has personally signed this book, and he has graciously offered that the 10 first participants who have registered for this webinar will be getting 10 copies of this book. So if you know you're one of the first set of people to register for this session, for the webinar session, you are entitled to a copy of the book. We will get your emails and find a way to pass the book across to you. Also, please be free to check on amazing.com because this book is online. I promise you, if you read this book, it will give you an insight into a lot of topics and sites about strategy and management, not just of your business, also of self. This book, it's key, and I want you to avail yourself of. Like I said, the book is on Amazon.com. You can get a copy of this book. While we're at it, TL First, you permit me to say, is a consulting group that is vast with 35 years experience in management consulting, in strategy, and in accountancy. I'm sure if you go to our website, you'll get a lot of some of these activities. We've worked with governments, the Nigerian government. We've also worked with state governments and we work also with corporate organizations. We also have programs on the international study tour. We offer international study tours to countries like the US, the United Kingdom, South Africa, and Morocco. These are some of the activities we've been engaged in and we're still engaging in. So if you want to ask participants, maybe one or two people, what exactly are your expectations at this Zoom meeting this afternoon? If you have, is there anyone, you have expectations? Please, can you kindly speak while we are waiting for Dr. Soji to join us? These are some of the things we're going to be talking about during the meeting. The light issue, the networking issue, security problems, and a host of other things that actually affect business or that affects how we run business in Nigeria. Is there anyone who wants to take the gun? Somebody wants to speak to talk about their expectations this afternoon and to see how we can go forward while we still expect Dr. Soji to join us. Anyone, please.
Right. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Soji Adeniyi.
Okay.
Yeah, my expectation for joining this webinar this afternoon is for me to be able to understand the economy outlook for a great Nigeria, so that I'll be able to reposition myself and my organization to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that this year will be offering, and also to be able to safeguard myself and my organization from some challenges that may be arising in the course of this year. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tunji. We'll take note of your expectations. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me at this point to welcome Dr. Soji to this discourse. I'll hand over to you here now. Dr. Soji, you're welcome, sir. And thank you for joining us.
Okay, confirm it's still projecting now as full screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can see your screen. It's projecting, sir.
Okay. Good morning. I mean, it's afternoon already. Good afternoon, us from across the Hanal. We believe that we have one or two things to learn within the context. We have found ourselves at crossroads, in my opinion. And let me say clearly that I'm not an economist. I'm just a development specialist, and I'm interested in the economy of the country along the lines of social development. And social development would not happen except we have a vibrant economy. So that's my interest, upfront, so that economists in the room do not think that I'm usurping their role. I still believe that, they have a role to play in defining the direction of growth for Nigeria. But most importantly, I believe that as a nation, we owe ourselves, the truth to be spoken to the reality of our time. We are facing high inflation, rising debt, and high unemployment in the country. Energy has been a major challenge since the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy. The key sectors, non-oil exports, hospitality, pharmaceuticals, tech, agriculture, they all hold huge potentials for rapid recovery and transformation, but we must, approach these sectors carefully in order to deliver, the expected outcomes. My objective is to decode the trends and try to look at the current challenges, but also with the mindset of the untapped opportunities that we have to push us in the right direction. So let's look at the trends. 2023 to 2025, our GDP growth is projected at about 3.2% according to the IMF. We have reported as our 2024 inflation rate of over 25%. That's one of the highest globally, but it's projected to decline with the current, policy shifts that the CBN and the economic team of Mr. President is putting in place. Our exchange rate has remained volatile, but at least reasonably stable in the last couple of months. And of course, it has even gained against the dollar, in recent times. Our foreign direct investments seems to be recovering from the post-2023 decline. At least 2024 is reporting about 6 billion. So we hopefully would get, better if we can, address some key challenges that I will be discussing in the few slides ahead. If we look at the data available from the IMF and the World Bank and the African Development Bank, our position as Nigeria in terms of GDP is that we're doing about 3.2. The average for Africa is about 4.0, while global average is about 2.7. So we're doing better than global average, but definitely behind in terms of the African space. South Africa, Egypt, and a couple of other countries are doing well, above what we're doing. In terms of inflation is where we saw a big surge after the removal of the first subsidy, and transportation and everything that is connected, has pushed us in the direction that we need to be careful about. We're about 25%, it's 8%, while the global average is 6.8. So definitely we're not in a position to to compare ourselves when it comes to the African space or the global space in terms of inflation. But of course, it can be attributed to our recent, challenge of removing first subsidy, which I think is painful, but over time we will get to adjust. At least yesterday we saw that Dangote refinery is, further reducing their own price of, PMS, to give succor to those who are currently going through a lot of challenges in that space. Unemployment is 33.3 for us, about 20.5 for African average, but globally is about 8.4. So we have a lot of work to do in order to create employment and reduce the vulnerability of our youth, restiveness, and then the ease with which the bad guys are able to recruit them because we are not gainfully engaging them. The foreign direct investment flow, about 3.5 billion last year. We're hoping that it will get better. Averagely in Africa is about 7 billion and about 20 billion, globally. I mean, we saw just yesterday, Donald Trump was welcoming 100 billion, investment by Apple into the US economy. So we have a lot to learn. We have to position ourselves and we have to make it easy for people to connect. And going forward, of course, the challenges in the Nigeria economy are a lot. We can discuss that for another full day, if you ask me. Please, Peter, can you confirm that you can hear me loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay, just so that I'm not speaking to myself. So we've discussed high inflation and currency depreciation. I mean, that is one major challenge that we didn't get right when we were talking about energy mix. We talked about migration from, fuel-dependent vehicles to the compressed natural gas, CNG vehicles. Unfortunately, we have not been able to do a network of CNG distribution across the country. So even though some people have chosen to convert to CNG, the queues for CNG vehicles now are, several kilometers because of the supply. At least here in Abuja, where I went yesterday, the CNG queues are extremely long, meaning that supply is still a major problem. And that is a problem that we ought to have sorted out even before we start deploying CNG. Weak industrial base and import dependence, we can say that from now to tomorrow, several countries have left. Several companies have left and some are still planning to leave, mostly because of energy challenges, because there's none of those companies that are able to produce profitably within the energy challenge that we have. Insecurity, of course, is a major problem until we solve the problem of insecurity, not by the boots on ground, not by our security agencies alone, but by increasing the social, network and the opportunities for people to earn a living, even from their villages, I mean, if there is insecurity, it then becomes more difficult for the farmers to go to the farms. We've seen, farmers being killed. We've seen farmers being held hostages. We've seen farmers paying to bandits and all of that. These are reasons why food insecurity will continue to be a major problem, and it will affect investment in this space. Power supply, of course, is directly linked with what I just described with the CNG. Even when you convert generators to use CNG, you can't get, or to use LPG, you still struggle with how to get those, into your systems, even when you are willing to pay. Limited access to finance for, SMEs, that has been a recurring decimal, despite the effort of BOI and some other institutions like SMEDAN. We know that there's still a lot of challenge in the space, towards people needing, huge collaterals in order to access funds, and then that is affecting the way, positioning of businesses or people who really genuinely want to do business but have challenges with financing. Then, of course, the one that bothered me the most is the technically skilled workforce. We all saw what happened during the construction of the Dangote refinery. Over 250,000 workers were brought in from India and Pakistan to drive the process of that refinery. I mean, let's even forget about those high tech. Look at, what we have for the basic skilled artisans. I mean, we need to bring in people from Togo, people from Chad to do POP, to do, tiling and all of that, because they have the skills. Our own people who are supposed to have been locally trained lack those skills, lack those, capacities to deliver. If you need to hire anyone now, you need to go through like 1,000 people before you can hire, 20 or 30 people. It's difficult to find, skilled workforce that can deliver for both SMEs and for medium, enterprises. And we need to do something about that. Our technical schools need to really be reinvigorated, and they need to be linked to the private sector so that it will not just be theoretical learning, but focus will be on delivering a value on the long run. Then, of course, limited support system for small and medium enterprises, multiple taxation. I thank God that the president has insisted that we're going to see a lot of changes in our tax model. Hopefully, that will bring some kind of relief to the SME sector. But at the moment, it is extremely difficult to run an SME in Nigeria with the multiple taxation system, from the local government to the state government to FIRS to LIRS. All of these local, taxation systems choke, SMEs, making it extremely difficult to deliver, value to the teeming population. And we have not taken our rightful place in the AFTA, the African Free Continental Free Trade Zone Agreement that we signed up to further expand our scope and make us, part of the 1 billion, consumer base in Africa. And I think we need to spend a lot more time, this year exploring those opportunities. So for maximum impact, my recommendations are that we need to genuinely invest more in technology and digital economy. There is a lot of opportunity in that space because it's not limited by, physical presence. You can set up a tech firm in Lagos and operate globally. And that means that our product can be in the global market, if the infrastructure supports it. And that infrastructure includes, power, it includes, discourse, it includes what we get from our so-called technology, the MTNs, the NCC, all of these people that need to make the fintech environment work needs to be brought to the table. Recently, we've had very high increase in cost of data. Of course, that begins to affect, even I was running online training and I have to send money for data to participants because majority of them are not able to continue because of the high cost of data. So these are challenges that would not allow the tech and the digital space to move forward. Then we have the agric and the agri-processing space that has huge potential for job creation and exports, space. But we are not doing enough in that space to make it attractive to young people, because agriculture and agripreneurs can't actually be the game changers. And I mean, you can imagine the challenges that we face and the seasonalism of vegetable markets, of production of basic household food security system. Just 2 days ago, the World Food Program said Nigeria will face a very high food insecurity from August of this year. That's giving us a 5-month warning. So what are we doing in order to key into that and make sure that we are able to connect and make things happen? Pharmaceutical and healthcare is another area where we need to really, really up our game. Local drug manufacturing facilities need to expand. We have the people, we have the numbers that needs to make a difference. NAFDAC is constantly complaining about poor quality or fake drugs and all of this. I mean, if we have our local, production facilities that are covered by our regulatory agencies, these will reduce. It will mean that we'll save more lives, and we might even begin to attract medical tourism, in that space. Then hospitality and tourism would do well if insecurity is put to check. I mean, remember what happened in Lagos at the so-called Dirty December? I mean, over 1 trillion was reported by Lagos State as, the boost that came into that economy just for that period. Imagine if we had, a cycle of events all through the year where we could have boat regattas, where we could have, all kinds of tourist drive in the years, and train our people to be able to take advantage of that. It will definitely boost our GDP, and it will encourage people to come and invest in our vast, waterfront and our green space. And then, of course, renewable energy. I mean, we keep talking about solar panels are still largely, more than 80–90% are being imported. Alternative energy solutions that are supposed to drive, our economy are still largely dependent on China. We need to, reverse all of those trends. We have the materials here. Why do we export them raw and then we get finished product back into the country at exorbitant rates? So a lot of investments need to happen in this space. I encourage young people, don't just be distributors, be interested in manufacturing, be interested in partnerships, to bring manufacturers into the country, be interested in longer term, investments that is not necessarily going to pay you today, but over, a good time, you might be able to recoup those longer term investments. And don't be afraid to join forces with other people that, you can bring value to the table, even if it takes you a longer time to achieve your objectives. But energy, solar system, hydropower, these are areas that we really, really, really need to invest in order to change the narrative and put us forward as a country in the year 2025. These areas are not limited by scope or limited by opportunities, but they are beyond. I mean, they are the areas that we need to drive. They are the areas that we need to focus on in the short term and in the medium term. And I believe that if we do that, we will achieve better results for Nigeria and for our young, population. The one that stands out for me, if you ask me, is the agropreneur space. The agri-processing, we need, I mean, I still see a lot of exports in this area, for raw materials, when we have the potentials of adding value, upgrading the facilities that we currently have, expanding our scope, partnering together and putting, our money where our mouth is in order to create jobs here, because every time you export, you're actually exporting jobs. Because in the other hand, when the people who are buying from you buy, they are going to put them through factories where thousands and thousands of people are employed, which you could make happen here. But again, remember, it's linked to power, it's linked to technology, it's linked to infrastructure, it links to security. I mean, these are all, intertwined, factors. And that's why I said I'm not an economist, but I'm a development specialist, and I see development holistically. It is only when we have development, real development, is when the systems work, the technology is there, the infrastructure is there, the health, education factors are put into consideration. That is real development. Development for me is not just building, flyovers in cities that do not have traffic, which is what majority of our governors want to do, just to, be seen to be developing their cities, when all they need to do is to develop their people, and over the time, those people will develop the city automatically. So I believe that it's only a matter of time, but we need to drive change in this direction. So policy recommendations from my hand, just like I've been saying, we need to continue to do what we are doing in the CBN in terms of the reforms around the Forex. I've been speaking with a lot of people in the Forex market, and they are unhappy because it's no longer business as usual. But if that is what we need to stabilize our dollars, the economy needs to grow. And what we need to do is to be in a position to foreign exchange, non-oil going forward, but in the race, we need to see how we can make results, make things work. Then, of course, the infrastructural development, power, roads, digital connectivity, all that will change the game. We need to boost local manufacturing, reduce import dependency. We need to build public-private partnerships, drive investment in key sectors with the PPP model, but it should be PPP for the people, not PPP for those who have the money and they just want to make more money for themselves. PPP models need to add people to it, so it will be public-private partnerships, for the people of Nigeria, not for some private individuals that just want to, get richer in that space. I mean, we have the opportunity of our roads networks, we have the opportunities of our infrastructure into rural areas where we could have, a lot of partnerships towards transportation to be able to move our rural produce into global markets. Those are areas where there is strong opportunities, good opportunities for PPP. And we believe that if these are done, things will definitely give better results. In a nutshell, my conclusion will be to say that we need to build further resilience, and strategic investment will make those changes. Strategic investment in the thinking that what are the things that we can do that can bring foreign exchange? What are the things that we can do that can expand the scope of employment that we have? If one person can do businesses that brings 100 people to the table in terms of employment, then we do that for every local government in Nigeria. If you multiply that by the 744, in no time at all, we would reduce that unemployment data from the current 33% to maybe less than 10% over a 3-4 year period. So Nigerian potentials needs the right policies, which I believe the current government is trying to put in place, but they need to move a lot more faster. We cannot afford to continue to be slow. Innovation, infrastructure, and inclusion is very important. And when I say inclusion, I'm not just talking about gender. I'm talking about inclusion in terms of possibilities to engage the less thought about sectors, sports sectors, sectors such as sports development, such as technical skills for sports people. All of these are the innovation that we need to drive in order to ensure that even those who make money in short term are able to invest for longer term engagement, and then they will not be a burden to the nation as they age. Stakeholders such as government, private sector, impact investors, they need to collaborate. In the new structure that we are seeing, aid is dying. You can see what has happened to USAID after the emergence of President Trump. Several other bilaterals are going to most likely follow in that space, and we need to wake up and smell the roses, because as we speak now, those aids are going to dry out. Impact investing is going to come on board, where people are going to put their money where their heart is, and they're going to watch to either make money from it or exit the space. So we need to be more strategic. Education needs to be number one in government investment. Health needs to be at least number 2 or 3 in that space. And then agriculture. Thank God for the new Ministry of Livestock Development. I believe that holds huge potential there. I mean, we need to start thinking about the Texas of Nigeria, in Yobe, in Jigawa, and the rest of them, where there are some greenery, and we can, do a lot more in the space going forward. And then, of course, we have to think about Nigeria as an opportunity, a huge opportunity, because we have the numbers. And these numbers can only be taken advantage of when we think inclusion, when we think partnerships. One person cannot do it in most cases, not even the big guys. You would see Dangote would reach out to Femi Otedola, and they will reach out to about Deco and the rest of them to do bigger things. This is the way young people need to think. Bring your comparative advantage, engage with other people of like minds, build bigger structures than what you will have built alone, and results will be there. Do good legal engagements, engage with like-minded people, make sure that all your agreements are on paper, register them in court, register your properties so that they can have value for you to be able to use as collateral. All of these are necessary if you must take advantage of the opportunities that 2025 brings to the table. I think with this, I would be happy to take questions, clarifications from the audience. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soji. I personally have learned a lot from these slides you have shared. And I want to believe that our participants are eagerly waiting to ask a few questions. So you will permit me, sir, at this point, to read out some of the questions that have been asked while you were giving your talk. And so we will take it alphabetically. The first question, sir, says, what are the best strategies for navigating inflation and financial uncertainty as a business owner in Nigeria? I will give you room to answer that first before I go ahead to the second question. So over to you, sir. The first question says, what are the best strategies for navigating inflation and financial uncertainty as a business owner in Nigeria? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Inflation is always a function, it's a double-edged sword. It will attack your finances that are liquid cash more than your assets. So your goal as a business owner is to use your financial assets as quickly as possible to acquire assets that can appreciate. I'm not saying buy a vehicle that you don't need, because vehicles, as you know, depreciate from the day that you buy them. The next day, somebody is offering you less than that. But if you buy, a land, if you register it and you hold onto it, it can only appreciate. I know, a friend of mine who miraculously got over 100% in less than 6 months for a property, a strategic property that he purchased, a few months ago. And I felt really, really glad for him, because that, completely changed his focus. And as business owners, what you need to understand is that, yes, you are running a business, but in the real sense of it, your real business is in asset management. It is how you manage your assets that determine your growth. Your business can be small, operating from one small location, until you use the funds that you get there to stabilize your business by acquiring assets that you can use as collateral if you need to raise funds to expand, or you can use, to stabilize your business during turbulent times. So you must know that cash in the bank will always be deflated, but assets acquired and in the right location and with the right, documentation and properly registered will help you stabilize, and it will give you an edge against inflation on the cash front. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. I'll go straight to the second question. It said, the second question, sir, says, will the current proposed tax reforms really support business development, or will it strangulate business owners and frustrate them out of business? The person who asks is asking for your view, sir. Will the tax reform support business development?
Yes, I have attended not one, not two on the proposed tax reforms and the system. I think the objective is actually to make to reduce the problem of multiple taxation and push us towards a direction in which we would have a Nigeria where it will be easy for you to just go online, do a self-assessment, raise your invoice and make payments, and then they would come back and assess and say, okay, whether you have done the right thing or whether you need to pay a bit more, they would come back to you. So I don't see it strangulating. It would always look like that because the average Nigerian doesn't want to pay tax, not because of anything, but because largely they believe that the government is not using the tax well, and therefore, why should I contribute my money to it? But no country can survive without right, taxation. So a taxation system, my advice to the tax team has always been, get as many people into the tax net so that you can widen the scope of collection and then reduce the burden on each and every. And I think that's what they are planning to do now. It's better for you to get 100 people paying taxes at 5% than to get only 20% paying at 50%. You will still get the same amount of money, but those 5 people that are paying at 50% will die, and the other people, will also continue to struggle. So it's better to have everybody in the net, but with opportunities to make money while still being responsible in terms of our taxation. Tax is something that we all must get used to doing in terms of payment, but we must structure it in such a way. Why a lot of people complain is because they are not tax smart yet to understand that there's a lot of things that are not taxable. And it is only when you use the right, especially for small businesses, you need to hire a tax consultant that can help you. The Nigerians don't like hiring consultants because we think they're just going to take your money, but they are going to save you a lot of money because they will bring to the table all the other costs that are not taxable. And then whatever is taxable will be so minimal that by the time you pay it, you will not only be correct in terms of your up-to-date taxation, but your documentation will be right. And you will also know the health of your business. Majority of people don't keep the right books, and that's why they complain about taxation. Taxation is supposed to be easy on everyone if we follow the path. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will still be asking more questions. I want to seek the indulgence of the participants, so please come, bring in your questions, ask your questions. Dr. Soji will answer them as much as he can.
I saw one here that said, what key advice can you give to young entrepreneurs looking to scale their business? That's from Tosin Bello.
Yes, sir.
Tosin, that's a very good question.
Yes, sir.
Scaling your business is a function of 2 factors. Number one, your ability to take risk. You must be risk ready. You must be willing to be vulnerable. Some of us think that owning a business is like something we must hold as if we are married to the business. No, we are in love with the business, but we are not necessarily married to the business. So we don't have that legal hold that says till death do us part. We must be willing to be vulnerable by bringing other people to the table. But we first must understand the growth trajectory. Where do we want to go? 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year down the line? Do we have what it takes to get there, or do we need to bring in, additional investors? Once you understand this model, it makes it easier for you then don't be afraid to go and get additional knowledge. A lot of people, I recommend to them that they need to go back, to school, and not just go to school for going to school sake. Go to, business schools that have entrepreneurs that you would network with. It is in those kind of environment that you can find the right partners. You can see what people have done to move. You can see where they have had access to grants, access to impact investors. You can see all of that when you go to those schools. Those schools can cost you up to $1 million, 1.5, 2 million naira, but you must see it as part of your investment to scale, because your business that is 100 million turnover this year should not remain 100 million turnover next year if you actually have a growth trajectory. But you can't do much with it if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have the opportunity to scale through partnership with other like-minded people. Again, partnership means you have to have the right legal advice. You have to have the right, agreements, on board. If you are giving out equity, you must do proper valuation so that you know that you are not just giving out the value of your organization without valuation. All this costs money, but they are the real path to scaling and to growth. And I believe that if you follow that path, accessing funds will not be too difficult for you. But fund is not the main driver of growth. Fund is just an element. In fact, sometimes it's not more than 30%. What you really need to grow is a higher level of intellect, is a higher level of experience, is the right network that can put you, in the right space. That is the growth driver. And some investors would come with those growth drivers into your investment, even without bringing money to the table. So those are the things that you need to consider in order to scale your business. I hope I've answered your question, Tosin Bello. Thank you. Somebody is asking, what is the significance of the recent rebasing of the economy to the economic outlook this year? Okay, that's Peter yourself. Rebasing is actually, according to the economists, a way to ensure that we can actually track our growth. You see, it's easy to say we are moving, 10 basis points, 15 basis points in terms of, our economic growth and outlook. But if we don't have, what we call, a benchmark, we will not be able to track ourselves in a progression at the end of the year. So whatever it is that we're doing, with the recent rebasing, it is to ensure that we have, a level ground where we can measure, over a period of time, when we measure by next year. So whatever it is, if you reassess yourself and you say, okay, let's assume that I'm at 15% before, but now I am bringing myself down to, 10%, and I know that over the next, 6 months, the next 1 year, my goal is to go to 30%. Your base point is known and your growth is clear. I see that Professor Olasode has joined us, and it will be a good time to yield to my mentor and my boss who has just joined us. Prof, it's good to see you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think there is fantastic presentation, by the way. It was really good. Wish we had more time. Just before I make comments, I think there's a hand up from someone, and I can add some comments to what you've been saying. If we can invite the person who's got their hand up.
Yes, I think it's
thank you, sir.
Laura, please go ahead, ma'am. You have the floor.
Okay.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, madam.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. It's informative and is very detailed. We usually focus on young graduates who are unemployed. People don't talk about retirees because the economy affects them also. For example, now, I am a public servant. I'm retiring this year, and I'm so scared of retirement in the sense that despite the fact that I have contributed enough to sustain me for the minimum 10 years guarantee that they talk about, But there are some people that are not fortunate to work in a good organization where they can accumulate a lot of money as pension. And I learned that there are some people, even universities, when they finish that, what they earn monthly as maybe program withdrawal is not really enough. And me now, I'm scared because we attended a program and they said that the value of what we think we are going to earn in 10 years cannot sustain us. Please, sir, what is the way out for retirees and pensioners? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, madam. It's a very beautiful question, and thank you for bringing that particular subsector of the skilled workforce onto the table. Remember what I said about the lack of, adequate, skilled workforce in the country. The retirees, majority of, I'm also a retiree, by the way, so there's nothing to be scared about. It's always very scary when we see some of our colleagues that leaves, without the adequate preparation for going forward. But the key thing that I always advise retirees is to be clear about your vision for yourself post the retirement space, because the retirement is for life. As soon as you leave, you are on your own. So what it simply means is that you have to be your own planner. It's not what the government is planning for you. It's not the money that they plan to give you that is going to sustain you. What will sustain you is your own desire to live, your own desire to continue to make impact, your own desire to continue to influence your space. If you've been in education, is it time for you to become a consultant in the education space and work with people who are in the education space? Is it time for you to even have a small kindergarten in your retirement and just use that to demonstrate the skills that you have acquired over the years in that space? If you've been an accountant, it's time probably for you to just do a brush up, and these issues that we're talking about, taxation and all of these, small businesses are going to need it, and you might end up in that space providing support to them. What is important is that you must have a willingness to know that retirement doesn't mean going to the village and sleeping. It should be, starting a new opportunity of doing things that you love, so that your health will be, in alliance with what you want to do. I mean, I don't see you looking tired, or as I see you now, madam. And I believe that with this energy that you have, if you plunge it into any space where we are lacking the experience that I talked about for the young graduates, and for this is where you can bring in that experience and you can earn more. So I believe that all you need to do is first be strategic in your planning, and if you need additional guidance, you can sign up. TL First as a program for retirees. So you can send a DM to Peter Adejo, and he can arrange for you to, either you alone or your organization or people that are retiring alongside the same time with you can sign up for that program, and you can be sure that you will be handheld into a very, very joyful and enjoyable retirement. I wish you all the best, man. So
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. There are two more questions, but perhaps we can send the comments back when you send the videos around government intervention, and there's one also around small businesses. I enjoyed your presentation, Dr. Adeniyi. I've always enjoyed your presentation, obviously, and the whole world enjoys your presentation. And I was thinking actually we need to have made this even more global, to a wider audience, and bring in some of our international colleagues into it. So thank you very much. I think we should appreciate with our digital hands, if we can, and virtual hands. One of the things that you said, which was quite interesting, and we can throw it open, was that movement away from liberal economies to protectionism. US has started it. Yes, it was always in the mind of people, you said it, of government. So when US announced they're protecting the economy and their people, imposing taxes on other countries and cutting down development funds. The whole world reacted against it initially. But what's interesting now is here in the UK, we have Keir Starmer, who just announced that they're going to cut development funding as well. Then they're going to protect the economy. So it's quite interesting that, it's always in the mind of foreign leaders that, look, we need to sort out home before we start looking at what we do to support other countries. And in that kind of environment, in fact, some people would argue, I was thinking about countries that when you were saying it, I was thinking about countries that do that, and thinking, well, not just US, Brazil is always doing that, India is always doing that, China is one of the big ones that have started that. Can you just give me a second? I've just been distracted for 1 second. I'm just going to go offline and come back.
All right, thank you, sir. Why our chairman is offline for a second, can we please express, of course, virtually, our gratitude to Dr. Soji for a wonderful presentation. Now, this presentation you just listened to is what people pay money for to go to Harvard. For those who can't buy flight tickets, they go to the Lagos Business School, and you'll be surprised. We have a lot of business schools around Nigeria. This is one of those topics that even the audiences will be looking forward to. So this is a privilege. I want to thank you, sir, for this wonderful presentation. It's always been a pleasure listening to you. And please take advantage of the break that Prof will join us back later to show your gratitude and to say thank you to Dr. Soji. Participants now. Yes, Mrs. Fumilayo is asking if the presentations will be shared. If you share your email with us, definitely we will send you the presentation if you have your email. Welcome back, sir.
My sincere apologies. I just had someone knocking my door and I had to attend to that. So that's what happens with Zoom meetings, isn't it? You get distracted. Right, and I think Dr. Adeniyi is frozen. It looks, oh, you're back. Right, so I was just talking about, so what does that mean when economies are protected? Keir Starmer has announced the same, other countries have been doing that. And what does that mean for, and I think you covered a little bit of that. And something you said, I listened to all the whole presentation, and something you said in the middle was the use of technology for globalization. So there's one market now. There's just one market. You can access any market wherever you are, and you talked about comparative advantage. You are, if you have businesses, and those of us who have businesses who are online, you are at an advantage actually to compete with foreign suppliers. So if you can access a market in the UK, for example, using digital technology or whatever tools you have, then you can, at the lower cost of production, offer services. So, for example, you find people offering digital solutions from Nigeria, from India, and this has been happening for about 20 years when HSBC, first of all, from UK moved to India. And those are the kind of things we need to look at. So I mean, you said it, and people need to reflect on it. How can I, in my area of expertise, harness the global market that I have access to? Okay, yes, we still need some support. And one of the questions that people raised earlier was how the government can support that process. And you talked about infrastructure. So it's very communication infrastructure. If government can help improve that, it even allows someone, I was mentoring someone just, I don't know whether she's online, a few days ago in the middle of Nigeria somewhere. I don't want to tell you where she's based so that people will know who I'm talking about, producing crayfish sourced locally from somewhere in the Delta region, and how that person can do that and access markets in London, in US, and supply it at a cheaper rate using logistics and technology than those who are supplying from here. So those are the things we need to start thinking. how can I be more entrepreneurship using the tools that are available to me? And I found what you said quite useful. I mean, this is just a quick session for about an hour. If people want support in a bit more detail in terms of their business, whether it's agro, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's supplies or product services, we can support that. But I think those are the kind of things we need to be thinking. I have a global market, I have the access point, and with a little bit of infrastructure support, I can become more competitive than the next supplier. And that's the way I think we need to go. So that's where I'll end my comment in terms, because I think you've said most of the things. There is quite a lot of policy work going on, and I think we've heard a lot of that. And somebody asked a question about, I don't think that question was picked up, about how the reshaping of the tax reform can help small businesses. Obviously, it streamlines taxation for starter, and it reduces the impact on businesses. So it means you can do more. And the reason people hide on the below the radar of tax is because there's no point doing all that work, making all that product and profit, and having a lot of it going back to regulators or to the government. And if you open up that tax system so you get a little bit from a lot more people, it makes it quite easier. So thank you for that. I don't know what I need to say any more than that, but there are opportunities, there are challenges, but there are a lot more opportunities than challenges. If we begin to face what we supply and look at how we can be more productive, more efficient, and have a large scale of entrepreneurs across Nigeria, then we can access the international market easily. We can increase foreign revenue, we can increase dollars, strengthen the Naira, and actually be one of the global players. And that's what I think, that's the direction of travel. But I take the point that pace needs to be there. And hopefully we can get some more pace this year from the different public sector agencies working on this. Thank you very much once again. I'll leave it to any final questions that people may want to add, or Peter to give us the next steps in terms of what we're going to do and the announcements, maybe from Toasting on the next webinar. But I think we need to repeat these in a larger scale now. So rather than just say opportunities for businesses in Nigeria, we need to look at global opportunities and bring other businesses. If you're in Ghana, you can join. If you're in London, you can join. And let's see how we can push that notion of entrepreneurship further using technology and innovation and whatever tools that we have available. So thanks very much for that, Dr. Adeniyi. It's always a pleasure, and we look forward to having you back in London for one of these times to talk to people.
Yes, Prof. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, participants. I think it's been a wonderful time. Thank God that Prof was able to join even at the last minute. Peter, thanks so much for all that you're doing in the conference too. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this point, I want to thank Dr. Adeniyi very, with a heart-filled joy, to say thank you for coming. Thank God we stayed within the time frame. Now, for our participants and our audiences, both nationally and worldwide, we'll be having the next edition of this webinar in April. And the topic for the next webinar is an interesting topic. It is mental health. The topic is mental health in Nigeria, identification, early intervention, signposting, and breaking the stigma. Mental health is a very serious, is a matter of serious concern. So please remember to log in. Now, before you do that, before we go, we also want to let you know that TL First also carries out international study tours. So our jobs are not limited locally. We are also international, with offices in London, in the US, and also in Dubai. So feel free to visit our websites. Feel free to talk to us. After now, like a participant asked, yes, we will be sharing this presentation for more insights. And like the speaker also said, you can still ask these questions that will be properly directed to the appropriate quarters. I want to indulge us not to wait until the webinar sessions to check our websites. Go online, check our websites. There are continual programs that are running until our next webinar date. And until we see you in April again, God's willing, in good health, I want to thank all of you for joining, all of you for coming. May God keep us, and may God make the economic situation as it is easy for each and every one of us. Don't forget, the first 10 participants who register gets a copy of the book, The Agent of Change, written by Professor Olu Olasade. We will, through the registration back, send it to you or get in touch with you, find out how you can get your own copy. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for participating. God bless us all. See you in April. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.